live in the North Texas area, you understand how fast our seasons change. Just 3 weeks ago maybe, we had a massive winter storm that froze thousands of pipes and burst and did tons and tons of damage. And then today it's 80 degrees. So that's sort of how things go around here. It's also springtime when we're doing this show, and we are having front after front after front come through Tornado Alley and bring all kinds of weather, unpredictable weather. And I always love having a roofing contractor on. And today we have a double whammy. We've got a roofing contractor who's also a remodeler who's dealing with some of the damage from the freeze as well as the roofs. He's probably got roofs to replace from hail and things like that. I want to introduce you to Michael Harris. Michael owns Bryjo Roofing and Remodeling.
That's correct.
Where are you, in Plano?
We're in Plano now.
You're in Plano?
Yeah.
In North Dallas area. And welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
It's good to be here.
Yeah. So I don't know which one to start on first, but roofing is really the reason I called you to begin with. And then this other thing happened in the meantime after we had scheduled this.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk a little bit about roofing and talk to our listeners about some of the decisions that they need to make when they suspect. Listen, when we had a 60-mile, we had a storm come through. We had a 60-mile-an-hour straight line wind hit us that lasted 5 or 10 minutes. And when I went outside, there were little pieces of shingles all over my driveway from the ridge that had just peeled off. Yeah. And so now we get to go do the roof thing.
Yeah.
And so this is not unusual, particularly with an older home.
Now, what I always tell people when they see shingles in the yard, it's not always your roof. The shingles are missing from it.
Especially with a wind like that.
Yeah, we get phone calls where they've got shingles and they want us to come out and look at it. I tell them to walk out in the yard first, look back and make sure if it's missing from your roof, you'll have black spots on the roof. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If it's not yours, it's your neighbor's. But we do get a lot of wind damage. A lot of the shingles, the 3-tab shingles, which is the thinnest one you can get, is rated around 70 miles an hour. They're getting a little better with them. But most of the laminated shingles, which is probably 90% of what you're seeing on roofs, aside from the custom shingles, they're a little bit more money.
So let's explain. I'm just going to stop you in the middle of that thought. Tell us, what is the difference between a laminated shingle and the whatever the other is, solid shingle? What is the difference?
Well, you have laminated shingles, which basically is layers of composition, but it's got some felt in there and it's impregnated with asphalt, and then they put granules on top of it. So with that line of shingles, you have a standard composition. Then you can get a class 4. Now, class 4 can be in a composition shingle, or you could go up into a composite shingle, which looks kind of like plastic. Mm-hmm. But you have shingles that can either be stone-coated steel. Those are nice to have. They're a little bit more pricey, obviously. They have a composite shingle that is got impact resistance. It's really good. They can handle freeze, hail, fire. It's not the same. But I recommend with people, when you know that you live in a hail-prone region, to start considering a class 4 shingle. Mm-hmm. It's an upgrade from your standard composition shingle, but you get a discount for it from your insurance carrier, so it's always a plus to be able to get a double benefit.
Plus, you sleep a little better at night this time of year.
Well, you don't have to replace your roof every time, nickel-size hail comes in, mm-hmm. or dime-size hail. Generally, these last up to 1.5 inch size, which is a golf ball size. So you have enough hail that comes thick, it can damage almost any kind of roof. You can have tile shingles that are broken. Those you can break just walking on them, trying to repair them.
Exactly, yeah.
So you want to be careful of what you're buying. And plus, if you look at a heavier roof, the framing underneath that's different than if you just put a composition shingle.
So it's the whole system.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that.
And I'm glad you bring up system, because one of the problems we had when this ice storm came in is people were getting ice dams. They would go out there, it'd be sunny, and all of a sudden water's dripping in from the roof. Well, that ice was freezing up on the edge of the roof. the night before the ice froze, the next day the snow starts to melt when we had that 6 to 8 inches, our every 10-year snowstorm that we get,
Yeah.
right? But those ice dams were developed on the edge, and the snow would melt, which would force the water backwards up under the shingles, and they were all leaking on the outside walls.
And so the point you're making is that shingle roofs are made for water to go down towards the edge of the roof. In other words, it's water goes downhill. And so you build the roof so that water can go downhill and not get inside. What Michael is talking about is the reverse happens with the ice dam. That can be in your valleys, it can be any number of places.
Flashings.
And it forces that water back up against the whatever's in the valley or the shingles, however.
Right.
And then it finds its way in.
Yeah, and when we talk about systems, they actually have products out there. We don't normally do it in this region, but you're hearing people talk about ice and water. And there's an ice and water shield that you can put in. Well, that ice and water shield is 3 feet wide. So that's your typical eave depth. Is usually about 24 inches, but when you go from the edge up to past the exterior wall, you've got the 3 feet. Now your 6-inch overlap that you had for your shingles has now increased to 18 inches in most places. So the ice damming doesn't occur. But those homes that did not have any of that, some contractors unfortunately don't even put valley material in the valleys.
I've noticed.
Yeah. And another mistake that's made is the installers cut them too short where they fall just 6 inches shy of where they actually need to be. The water should continue over every piece of flashing, and some guys just don't know.
So if I'm a homeowner and I've hired somebody that I trust to do this, and let's just say they did a snow job on me, no pun intended. Well, pun intended. And they're not following these practices that you're talking about. What can I do? Or is there someone I call? How do I find out whether they've done it right?
Well, it's kind of hard to stand out there and watch the installers and know for sure. And most lay people don't really know how it's done. They look up and they see a roof and the shingles look normal. They look flat.
Right.
From the ground, they look okay. The only time they call is if there's a little, what we call a fish mouth. That's something sticking up just a little bit. But, you can have guys come in and inspect it. We've gotten people to call us before, say, hey, can you just come do an inspection? Now, it's not every contractor's dream to go behind and check every contractor
No.
and say, did you do it right? Because
No.
now you're, kind of waving your fist, going,
Right.
come on.
Right,
Why didn't you call us first? But, short of it is, you can look, there's actually online, you can look at installation manuals. Now, you don't want to be the guy standing out there looking up the installers going, hey, you're not doing this right.
I've got clients that'll do it.
Yeah, it happens.
It happens, yeah.
I read this online, it's got to be true. Yeah. But with the guys, you want to know that there's actually somebody that is a project manager that knows the industry.
It sounds like what you're saying is hire a quality company to begin with.
Yeah.
Now, you can always go, and it has always been the case, particularly in roofing, and go find certain people that will say, I'll do it half price. Don't worry about it, man. Everything's covered.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things that happen when it comes to hailstorms. You get a lot of guys who'll come knock on the door. That's just a marketing tool people will do. They'll come knock on the door and say, hey, we'll help you. It won't cost you a dime. That's risky because there's a reason that the things cost the way they cost. So when we talk about ice and water shield, we talk about in the valleys, we talk on the edges, we talk about quality products, we talk about underlayment, plywood repairs. We want to have a good moisture barrier that's on that roof as well. And sometimes we'll find that the same old felt is there, and it'll have new shingles and old pipes and the same old drip edge.
With a lot of black tar around them.
Yeah, that's happened before too. I always say if you put black tar on the repair, it's going to cost you more to fix it.
Yeah.
Because you got to scrape it all back off.
How many layers of shingles? Let's say I have damage and I call a roofer, and the roofer says, man, we'll just go on top of that old layer. It's fine. Don't worry about that.
18 layers is fine. No, it's not.
You've only got 5 layers, man. There's room for one more.
That's right, the framing's still fine. If it starts bowing, then you got a problem. No, we try to just limit it to one. I haven't put 2 layers on a roof in, I know, 20 years. And it's just, you add a lot of stress onto that home. You don't realize that, a typical weight of a shingle, let's say a bundle, or not a bundle.
What's
but
a
let's say-
bundle? What does a bundle weigh?
Well,
80
on a
pounds?
3-tab, you got 70 pounds.
70
Okay,
pounds.
and there's 3 bundles to a square. So you got 210
A
pounds of
square is, and how much is a square? It's 100 square feet.
Yeah, that's right. It's 10 by 10 area. So, and that's how we measure them. That's how we look. That's how we do hail assessments. We do what's called a test square. If you've got so many hits in a 10 by 10 area, then we know, okay, then it needs to be replaced. Sometimes you got 1 or 2 and you say, let's wait for a bigger storm. It's just better. Mine is I'd rather save my money and wait for some real damage. And then there's some people don't do it, and we're waving the flag saying, please, you need it, whether you use us or not. You need to do this. But to answer your question straight up, you can put up to 2, but if it's a laminate shingle, you cannot lay over a laminate shingle because there's too many pits in it, and the manufacturers will not warranty those shingles.
Oh, so we're getting into a manufacturer thing
Yeah.
as well as an insurance thing, because they're only going to pay to remove so much.
Right.
Right.
Well, let's say you've had a hail claim and they paid to replace the shingles and they were going to take off the old layer. If you don't take the old layer off, and then let's say you get a hailstorm 2 years later, which we've lived in Texas long enough, you've had it, you can't come back and have them pay for a second layer that they paid for last time. So I recommend if they're paying you to remove it, remove it. That way you can expose the decking that's there and know for sure if you need other repairs.
Let's talk about decking,
Yeah.
because there's options in decking. What are some of the options, and how would you advise people to kind of assess, something that's not just an upsell from somebody,
Sure.
something that makes sense?
Well, on a lot of homes, if we're doing what we call a redeck, that's where we're going to take off either if it's old wood shingles or we're going to take off the plywood. What we recommend is if we can take off that layer, we go back with a radiant barrier, and that's foil on one side. That helps you with the energy in the house. But you want to start it at 1/2 inch. There are some decks out there that are 3/8. I've walked across a roof carrying a bundle of shingles. You walk between 24-inch on center rafters with a bundle of shingles, and especially near the ridge, you're going to find the attic real quick.
Yeah.
And so now they've shifted things up to 1/2 inch, which in standards is 7/16. But I recommend radiant barrier if it's possible. Some people don't like that. Word is on the street that sometimes the cell phones don't work well in your house if you have radiant barrier decking.
Well, it gets blamed for that a lot.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and it makes sense. I mean, it's a foil. It's like wearing a tinfoil hat
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
on your house. However, the benefits generally outweigh that, and I think now the technology, you can there's a workaround for that.
Yeah.
If you want to spend the money. So we have radiant barrier, which of course I love radiant barrier. I always have. I think it is real beneficial to a house that doesn't have it.
Yeah.
And then the OSB. Now let's talk dollars.
Oriented
Let's talk
strand board.
Let's talk some dollars here. So the common, or really the go-to material for roof decking is oriented strand board, or OSB.
Right.
Which is when you look at it, it looks like little layers of wood all kind of glued together. That used to be,
Shavings from the 2x4s they built. Yeah.
cost-wise, used to be $7 a sheet, $5 a sheet.
That was like the 10-cent Coca-Cola. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're not going to see that anymore. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're pushing upwards of $30 a sheet right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first time I bought one at the new price at $27, I thought they rang me up wrong. I said, I'm sorry.
No, this I
Yeah.
didn't buy 5 sheets. I only one. Yeah.
And then she said, I'm sorry, I'll walk you back over and show you. And it was a shocker.
Yeah.
But we generally don't get those kind of price increases unless a hurricane's coming. But because the demand that we have for the product, the factories that don't have all the same workers in them right now because of COVID has really changed how quickly we can get product.
Well, there's a drag on the whole industry right now because of accessibility to products. I wanted to talk about storm damage and remodeling. I hope you'll come back and let's talk about the remediation work you're doing and the remodeling work you're doing. We've run out of time today. Can you believe it already? I really appreciate your advice, and hopefully soon we can do a remodel show. That'd be fun as well.
Yeah.
Michael Harris with Bryjo Roofing has been our guest.